Drop it. All right, power panel. Cenk Uygur, John Iadarola, David Dayen, everybody. Great to have you back, David.
Thanks.
We're looking forward to a lot of show today for you guys. By the way, of course, David is from the American Prospect, and it's always great to have you here, man.
Thank you very much.
So now we've got Trump doing curious things, Devin Nunes doing curious things, and then news about the campaigns as usual. So. Lately, and this is a good day for it, I'm on the warpath. I hesitated before saying, is it really warpath? Yeah, I think it is. On how the media is smitten with Buttigieg and refuses to write anything negative about him. And if we have a comical example of it today, so you don't want to miss that story. And we'll do a Wibber on it. What if it was Bernie rule? Okay.
I haven't heard that term before. Yeah. I've used that a lot, but I haven't heard that term.
Yeah, that's because I invented it. I invented the word fake.
Yeah.
Trademark.
Yeah. So we found out that Bernie worked for Blackwater for a few years, but he says he has an NDA, so hands off.
You can't talk about it?
No, can't talk about it.
Can't talk about it.
Yep. Yes. All right, let's do it. Let's get started.
Yeah, just before we jump into the first story, just a quick little update to the Duncan Hunter story, because he had, pled guilty. He has now announced that he will resign, so he's going to be transitioning out. That is obviously good news. He was terrible, but one interesting little note, and I think possibly just a little bit of not corruption. It's not illegal or anything like that, but just a little bit of Duncan Hunterness on his way out. He announced that he will be resigning after the holidays, which you might think, well, why would you do that? You're leaving, you can't do any votes. Why not at least go and be with your family and that's it? Well, somebody pointed out, and it's not proven that this is why, but if he waits until after January 1st when they come back from the recess, he gets another month of his congressional salary.
Yeah, he gets an extra paycheck.
And if he's facing a fine of $500,000 potentially, that wouldn't hurt.
Johnny Isakson, who's leaving the Senate, did the same thing.
Oh, yeah?
He's leaving at the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, it could also affect elections. So but I don't know if they're going to hold a special election.
I don't
on that,
know. Yeah.
et cetera. So we don't know how that's going to work out. But Amar Kampa-Najjar is running in that district, a wonderful progressive. So CampaCampaign.com. Check him out. See if you like what he's got. Yeah. And so. I don't know if his chances are better or worse now that Duncan Hunter is leaving, but I do know.
Darrell Issa is running in that seat.
Really?
Yeah. Is he really?
Issa moved?
Issa moved to the Duncan Hunter district, so he's going to run in
Oh
that seat.
my God, okay.
Interesting.
Well, see, that's what I like though. If guys like Amar can take down two progressives for the price, two conservatives for the price of one, that would be amazing. Right. So I'm looking forward to that matchup if it happens.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, why don't we launch into the news, starting off with just a little update and a bit of speculation about impeachment. We're mostly done with the whole hearings thing on impeachment. Nancy Pelosi says that the charges are coming. We do have to wait a little bit. But in the meantime, there was some interesting speculation on Fox News about how this whole thing might develop. And one really dramatic possibility was suggested by Judge Napolitano. We're gonna have that for you in just a second. But before we get to that, first of all, the judge who has been critical of Donald Trump on this issue, does he believe that there is enough evidence for the charges that are coming soon?
If you ask me if there is enough evidence on which to base articles of impeachment, the answer is yes, because impeachment is essentially political. If you ask me, will they get more evidence if they wait to hear from Secretary Pompeo, Director Mulvaney, former Ambassador Bolton, the answer is yes.
You'd have to go to court to get that.
Yes.
And apparently in the caucus yesterday, she said we can do that, but it's going to take a lot of time.
Right.
So Napolitano, they're saying that hypothetically, some of the witnesses who have refused to come forward, some of which have been blocked by Donald Trump himself, while at the same time complaining that the people who have direct information aren't there, he's the one blocking them. Should they theoretically wait to get more evidence? I think that's an interesting question. I think that they're sort of damned if they do, damned if they don't. The fact that they're rushing ahead with impeachment is being attacked by the Republicans, but if they were to drag it out closer to the election, they'd be attacked for that as well.
And they'd be attacked actually more for that. So if they said, hey, listen, what are we gonna do? We gotta wait for the courts to decide whether Bolton and Mulvaney, et cetera, have to testify. The Republicans would cry and say, oh my God, you're dragging this out through the entire election process, and now that will be in the middle of the conventions when we're in the trial for the Senate. It'll be an unbelievable mess. And now, so they go, okay, fine, we'll hurry up. They hurry up. And then the Republicans bring on their only lawyer they could find in the country that would halfway support them in impeachment. And Jonathan Turley says, well, my main problem isn't that he shouldn't be impeached, it's that you guys are doing it too quickly.
And it's messing with my dog.
It's a Goldilocks situation, right?
Yeah,
it's too hot or too cold.
Yeah, and this is exactly why the Republicans don't want to talk about substance. That's why they're distracting you with, oh, too quick, too slow, too quick, too slow. Well, did he actually do it? I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Kevin McCarthy assiduously avoided that question recently. He's the leader of the Democrats in the House. If the leader of the Democrats in the House is avoiding that question, it's a pretty bad question for the Republicans.
Yeah. And so we talked about a couple of people that hypothetically could have testified already, but what about new witnesses that could testify, and some potentially on behalf of Donald Trump? Who will defend him?
If you go to a Senate trial, who testifies on behalf of the president?
Himself.
You believe that could happen?
I do. I think it'll be the most dramatic legal political event in the history of our era, with the President of the United States testifying under oath in front of the Chief Justice and the full Senate and 200 million people watching on television.
Thank you.
So what do you think? Any chance?
So, no, I think there is a chance.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Let's talk about
TYT Supreme Court.
So first of all, brilliant gambit by Napolitano. The most dramatic television event maybe in history. That's true. 250 million people watching. That's true. It would be like the Super Bowl. And what does Donald Trump be bigger than the Super Bowl? And what is Donald Trump most obsessed with? Ratings. He's constantly talking about, oh no, the Mueller testimony was a disaster, low ratings. Well, Donnie, this would be your golden opportunity to get the greatest ratings of all time. Even if you run out of office, you get to say, I had the best ratings of anyone that has ever lived. Whoa, that's compelling, okay? And for the rest of us, we think, no, that's mental. That doesn't make any sense, who cares about the ratings? But there's one person who cares a lot, it's Donald Trump. And look, David, I think you could goad him into it. I think you could.
I think you could goad him into it, but I mean, when's the last time Donald Trump showed up on turf that wasn't his own, right? He goes to red states, he goes to these very sanctioned meetings, these rallies. He goes to Twitter. When he's in public, he wimps out. When he's standing next to Macron, he wimps out. When he's standing next to Trudeau, he wimps out. He's not going to do this.
So, David, that's a great point. In fact, I'll back up your point by mentioning how Donald Trump ran from the debate when Megyn Kelly might be one of the moderators. You remember that?
Exactly.
And he was like, oh no, I'm going to do a thing to raise money for veterans. Later, by the way, he tried to keep the money. Anyway, I mean, if he's scared of Megyn Kelly, he ain't going to go testify in front of all these folks. But, I mean, look, we can start hashtag Chicken Donnie now.
Absolutely.
We've actually got something for you. So really fast, I got interested in the possibility of him testifying before the Napolitano thing, and so I asked people to just retweet if you want him to testify, and it was pretty popular. But I think that we need to be a little bit more direct than that. Napolitano goading him is one thing, but he spends all of his time on Twitter, so now it's on you. So I want you to tweet, very simple tweet, just hey @RealDonaldTrump. Do you have the hashtag testies to testify? Will you actually go into the lion's den? What a strong, bold move. Can you imagine him answering questions, like any of them, but like now, how excited would Kamala Harris be?
And who would, no, he wouldn't answer questions from the Senate. The Senate, they're the jurors,
yes.
Right? He would have to answer questions from the House managers. He would have to answer questions from Schiff. He would have to answer questions from Nadler.
I wonder when
that's who he would have to answer questions from.
I wonder if it'd be in April. Okay, so look, guys, another angle to pursue here is telling Donald Trump, your advisors don't want you to do it because every one of his advisors will be like, oh my God, no, whatever you do, don't testify. Do not go under oath and testify on national TV about what you did or didn't do. But the other thing to talk to him about is, do your advisors think you're stupid? Do they think you can't handle it? I guess they think you're weak.
Yeah.
And they think that maybe you're lying.
So do you think that's what Napolitano was doing? Do you think he was playing a mind game here?
I think so.
Maybe.
I think so.
I mean, he's been messing with him on this issue.
Right.
No.
He was an instrumental tool in the whole Tucker Carlson, Shep Smith thing, remember? He was basically one of the weapons wielded in that war.
No, I hear you. And it's obvious that Napolitano is not on friendly terms with Trump at this point. But I have been watching what he's saying very closely. I do believe that he genuinely thinks these are impeachable offenses, and being a true conservative actually does care about the Constitution. These are his, if you said to me Sean Hannity, I would say, oh, he's driven by loyalties and whatever power play he's doing, et cetera. And you can go down the line, but with Napolitano, right or wrong, I've gotten the sense that he's earnest about this, and that he thinks like, no, guys, this is legally obvious. That's what he's been saying all along. So I'm not going to agree to this, whatever farce you're playing here. But he will turn around and be very conservative on other issues. So he's not remotely left wing or not even remotely moderate. So I think he genuinely does mean it. Although at this point, since he genuinely said, I think this is problematic, then Trump attacked him, and then there was bad blood, right? So it's a little bit of both, but mainly I think he's being honest. So on the other hand, I do think that he is, at this point, since there is a little bit of bad blood, I think that's him goading him, right? And it's a really smart way of goading him.
And just for context, back, I guess it would have been more than a year ago, I saw a video of Napolitano on Fox News. They were talking about him potentially going and testifying to Mueller. Before Mueller, he told him not to talk to Mueller, to do it in written, if at all.
Right.
Yeah. So
look, didn't he say that he was strongly considering testifying when Pelosi sort of goaded him into this, and he was asked in the Nadler hearing, do you want to send somebody? They didn't do it. So I mean, the history here is that he chickens out.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. But so the last thing on it is, if and when he chickens out, if that's what happens, but I still think there's some chance that we could goad him into it. But if he does chicken out, the Democrats have to be really on their toes and frame it as, we gave him all of the opportunity to show up. He chose to run. He did. He can't make the defense that this process has not been fair anymore. Look, this is not a criminal trial, so you're not endangering yourself in that sense in any way, shape, or form. So just show up, make your case. If you don't make your case, we gave you all the opportunity in the world, and you ran because you're guilty, and everybody knows it. In fact, Donald Trump himself has said in criminal trials, which is a different matter and more serious, he said if you use the Fifth Amendment, that means you're guilty. So if you don't show up to your own trial, by Donald Trump's definition, it means he is definitely guilty.
Yeah. Well, why don't we go to our first break? When we come back, we're gonna have a couple of Joe Biden stories for you. He is picking fights with everyone. There was the push-ups earlier this week, and now he's taking shots at AOC and young climate activists. We'll have that for you after this.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks. Let me read some comments for you guys. Let's start with members. tyt.com/join to become a member. I stole McConnell's shell, writes in. When TYT, I always give people that haven't heard that a moment to laugh. So he writes in, when the TYT chant starts on the entrance theme song on Friday, I chant too. I love the TYT chant. Well, thank you. We appreciate that. You could use the shell actually as kind of like a bugle horn while you're chanting. I bathe in a very stable genius's tears, writes in. These arguments are pointless anyway. McConnell will not allow a trial in the Senate. It's a no-win situation. He'll hide in a shell and take the rest of the Senate with him. I'm gonna stop right there. One, because we already have a shell. And two, because that's actually not true. So McConnell has said that they would have a trial, which I found to be super interesting.
You know, there's like an interesting reason why the members of the Senate have to sit there as jurors and say nothing 6 days a week, and the timing of this would be a month before Iowa. So you have Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and all the other people running for president stuck in Washington weeks before the first primary of the season. You don't think Mitch McConnell knows that and he wants to do that?
Yeah, well, the second reason is I honestly believe he's keeping his own political options open, because somewhere in that shell is an eject button. And so
that's also true.
Right, he's polling it between 26 to 36% in Kentucky, McConnell is. So he's in a world of hurt. There's gonna come a point in the spring where he goes, well, Bonnie, it was nice knowing you. Eject. So him immediately coming out and saying, yes, there will be a trial was definitely an interesting note, okay? So Ruth M says, I stand on my head to have Trump testify under oath, no less. Okay,
I would love it.
And Carla Fornia writes in, loving today's power panel, David and John, two of my favorite journalists, flanking the best of the best and news analyst, Cenk. Oh, well, thank you. We all thank you. That's very kind of you. I'll leave on one last one. The mathematician on Twitter says, the great David Dayen and the one and only Johnny I. Congrats on his marriage, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Riding hour one today for the power panel with Cenk. Great. Yes, so congrats, John. I don't think I said it on air.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that. Yeah, there was a post game yesterday, if you remember, Anna Kasparian and I, we talked a bit about the wedding, also a little bit about hers too, but we had a lot of fun. You should take a look at it.
TYT, I will, because I wasn't in that post game.
No.
Okay, all right. So tyt.com/join. I love looking at members only content that I haven't seen, so.
It was a lot of fun. Okay, why don't we jump into a little bit of Joe Biden. Joe Biden was being interviewed by Axios and he was asked about his position on Medicare for all. And he's gonna answer, that's important, but also look at who he throws under the bus while doing so.
Medicare for all. Do you think that's political
The party's
suicide?
not there. The party's not there at all. I've been
So
saying
some
for
of your
years.
opponents are.
Yeah, but the party's not there. You know the numbers.
What do you think
You
that-
guys got it all wrong about what happened and what
You
what
sound
happened.
like Trump.
Yeah,
Fake
I
news?
do. No, look, it's not fake. It's just bad judgment. You all thought that what happened was the party moved extremely to the left after Hillary. AOC was the new party. She's a bright, wonderful person. But where's the party? Come on, man.
So there, look, he says the party's not there, people don't like Medicare for all. Obviously, we've got the actual numbers on that, but I think more importantly, he was not asked about AOC. Nothing about AOC, the squad, anything like that. Nothing about the future of the Democratic Party. But in answering a question about Medicare for all, he, of his own volition, came up with AOC's name and decided to try to assert that he, not she, represents the future path for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I actually want to get to the numbers right away.
Sure, okay.
Because I want, but as you do, John, I want the audience to understand that Biden's not necessarily talking about the voters. There's a difference between Democratic Party voters and the Democratic Party. So after you hear the numbers, then let's talk about that.
Exactly, and remember, he said the party's not there. He said, come on, you look at the numbers. 70% said that they supported providing Medicare for all, also known as single-payer health care for Americans. 42% of respondents said they strongly supported the proposal, while 28% said that they somewhat supported it. Now, obviously, 70% in a poll is high, but I want you to bear in mind, I did not just give you the results for the Democrats there. That's the overall number. That includes Republicans too, 70%, with 42% strongly supporting the proposal. What else in American politics do 42% of voters strongly support? And Joe Biden wants you to forget about all that. Now, those results mirrored a Reuters poll released in August, which found again 70% supported Medicare for all. And just so that you understand that this AOC comment, it wasn't a one of, Biden has questioned Ocasio-Cortez's broader influence in the past, saying over the summer that while she is a brilliant, bright woman, she has only won a primary. Asserting that it was so easy to win in her general election, then it doesn't really count for anything. I mean, how influential could she possibly be?
I mean, I'm partially fascinated by Biden wearing like a sweater under a suit jacket, but moving on from that, I think Cenk makes the absolute right point. There's a difference between the voters and the party. When he's saying the party is not there, he's talking about the blob of consultants and whatnot that are around the Democrats, and also the Democrats in Congress who are having trouble passing a health care bill or a drug pricing bill that's worth a darn. So, there's this victory lap being taken right now because Kamala Harris left the race, because Warren has had trouble, and they've pinpointed Medicare for all. See, Medicare for all, it's like you fly too close to it, you get burned. There's a concerted effort to blame Medicare for all for the troubles of those campaigns.
Yeah.
And so when you say the party's not there, that's coming from the party. That's who's trying to do that.
Yeah. So what I want to do is look up the most recent poll for you guys, and I just did. So I had it in my memory, but I wanted to confirm. So John gave you a poll that is a very fair representation of where Medicare for All has stood throughout all these different times. And so they've tried to attack Medicare for All in the beginning, in the middle, but now at this point they're voraciously attacking it. A Republican group is spending $6 million against it, and hence in favor of Biden and Buttigieg in the primary states. Insurance and Hospital Coalition is spending $1 million in Iowa and New Hampshire.
By the way, that's the Partnership for America's Healthcare Future. Half of all political spending in Iowa in a certain period of time, I believe a week or 2 weeks, was by that group. And this is during the primary, right? This is during when all the campaigns have their ads out. Half of all political spending came from just that group pushing an anti-health reform. Forget Medicare for all. They're against the public option. They're against Biden's idea too.
Yes, but certainly those ads hurt Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren the most because they're for Medicare for all. But now let's get to the main issue of, well, how's it polling? Well, the latest New York Times YouGov poll had it at a lower number after all of these attacks. And by the way, remember, it's not just those ads, it's every Republican against it and almost the entire Democratic Party against it except for Warren and Sanders. So after that three-way attack on Medicare for all, they finally brought it down to 55% in one poll, okay, in that poll that we're talking about. So that is for the whole country. The fact that it withstood a barrage of millions of dollars of propaganda and still stands at 55% is amazing. But wait, it gets better. Independents back it at a clip of 64%. So, yes, still to this day, okay? And the only reason why it's at 55% because it's lost all Republican support, because all of the corporate Republicans, Democrats, et cetera, are saying, no, hey, Bernie and AOC like that. So you don't want healthcare. They're like, oh, you're right, I don't want healthcare. Okay, so then how about Democratic Party voters? Because in this case, when in regards to Biden, that's the most important one. 81%. So when Joe
Party's
Biden,
not there?
Yeah, when Joe Biden says the party's not there, he doesn't mean the voters are completely there, 81% there. No, he's talking about, all of us corrupt corporate Democrats, we're not there because we take money from the insurance companies, the hospitals, the drug companies. So the Democratic Party is betraying its voters, yes, but the party apparatchiks, the operators, the corrupt people who run the party, we're not there. So voters, we're not gonna give it to you.
Yeah.
Well, there's one set of folks that are still gonna weigh in on that. They're the voters. So you got a primary coming up, Joe. You keep going in that direction. Let's see how it turns out for you.
Yeah, and I don't know if Biden doesn't get what the criteria should be for establishing who either should be or will be the future of the party. But what you've pointed out, that dichotomy between deciding on policy based on where the biggest donors or the supportive industries are coming from, or the leadership of the DNC or whatever, versus actually following the will of the voters. That is just another way that AOC is clearly the future of the Democratic Party. I would defy you to come up with an area where Joe Biden better represents where the party will be in 5, 10, or 50 years than AOC does. And I would just say this, I understand there's still a lot of factions in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party could not be luckier than to have AOC represent where the party is going. If they had a handful of AOCs, 50 AOCs, 300 AOCs, they could not be better positioned to win elections across the country over the next few decades.
And it's telling that her name popped out like immediately.
He couldn't help but think of her.
Right? I mean, the brand of AOC is extremely strong, such that she's in the heads of all these corporate Democrats, including Biden.
Exactly.
I'm going to read you the last line from the New York Times article. And by the way, the New York Times article kind of buried the lead on their own poll. They mainly talked about the wealth tax. They didn't even have Medicare for All in the title. They mentioned it later on in the article. Oh, by the way, the Medicare for All is intensely popular. So, in fact, it was more popular than the wealth tax, which is astoundingly popular. So in the last section, they say, and Medicare for All doesn't divide Democrats the way that the wealth tax does. Democrats of all ages, races, and education and levels support the policy by similar margins. So all of the Democratic voters are united in favor of Medicare for All, but the party says, we don't give a damn about you. We're not gonna give you that. We're gonna give whatever the donors want. Yeah. So be super clear about what Biden and Buttigieg are saying.
And it's amazing that when you have a poll like that shows that virtually everyone who could possibly take part in this primary supports Medicare for All, except the vast majority of the candidates on the stage.
Yeah, and think about that. Think about in what rational democracy would, I mean, at its height, we had, I think, overall in the different times, 27 candidates. And now, look, some of them are for Medicare for All that are not just Warren and Sanders. Actually, Andrew Yang's in favor of it, and there were some others, right? But at least 20 were opposed to Medicare for All, even though 81% of the voters in their primaries wanted. And think about how extraordinary that is, because their whole career rides on it. They could be president of the United States and they still go, no, I'd rather screw over the voters and take my chances in losing than actually support something that my donors don't support.
What's kind of amazing to me on it is that you had Bernie go out and announce the Medicare for All Act, and every senator that was thinking of running for president runs behind him in that press conference, right? Gillibrand, Booker, Harris, Warren, all of them, right? And that was before they had to face donors and try to figure out how they were going to get money without doing a grassroots campaign. And everyone who had to face donors then, who was in that picture, which you could call up, ran in the other direction. Yeah. It's really quite telling.
Well, why don't we turn to another aspect of Joe Biden that's causing us some troubles recently. The Sunrise Movement posted a video of a young climate activist talking with Joe Biden about his concerns over Biden's position on climate change, and it did not go well for the former vice president.
I'm Aaron, and what I'm wondering is, how can young folks trust that you're going to fight for us on climate change when your climate advisor, your hand-picked climate advisor, served on the board of a fossil fuel company?
That is not the person who's doing my advising. And by the way, yeah, Heather worked for us in the administration.
Yeah, no, I know.
Okay?
But she
look
also
at my record.
Yeah.
Look at my record. Just look at the record.
I have President Biden, Vice President Biden.
Well, I tell you what, if you look at my record and you still doubt about my commitment, then you should vote for somebody else.
I've looked at your climate plan. Why doesn't it ban fracking?
Well, why doesn't it ban fracking? Because you can't ban fracking right now. You got to transition away from it. Look, you're going to ban fracking all across America right now, right?
I would love to.
Yeah, I'd love to too. I'd love to make sure we can't use any oil or gas, period, now. Is it possible?
Yes.
Well, you ought to vote for somebody else.
Okay, and he said yes to that question, despite the fact that he could have been choked at any second by Joe Biden.
The body language is amazing. Look, Biden is old school. Do whatever you want with how he touches people, right? And so that's a guy, by the way, say he gets a lot of critique for touching women that way, but he also touches guys that way. Doesn't make it any better, by the way. But look, this activist who's trying to get in his face is leaning away from him. He's like, okay, all right, dude, stop.
But really fast. I just last weekend just got married, and when I talk with my now wife, we don't talk that intimately with the hands on the shoulders.
Okay, but look, that's a tiny part of the story. Back to the substance. So that's why I love the Sunrise Movement does this. That's exactly what you should do if you're a citizen, whether you're part of any activist group or not. Go ask the candidates questions, whether they're presidential candidates or any other candidates. You know why? Because it's your government. They're supposed to be your representatives. They're not the boss of you, you're the boss of them. And so, look, I'll give Biden credit on this. he keeps telling people not to vote for him, right? And he says, look, this is my position. But in seriousness, like he says, that was almost Biden-esque. No, guys, this is not a joke. It's not a joke. Okay, I'm being serious.
No, I'm not kidding.
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Okay, but seriously, he says, look, if you want to end fracking right now, I'm not your guy. It's true, he's not your guy. He's like, I want to do it at some indeterminate time, but certainly not in my presidency. I mean, he didn't say that, to be fair, you saw the tape, but that is his attitude. I mean, he told his wealthy donors nothing will fundamentally change.
But what he said was, we can't do it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to, but turns out we can't. I checked with somebody and we actually can't do it. I checked with the person who's the head of a liquefied natural gas company who's his advisor. The truth is you can do it. We have the technological capability. We actually, at the Prospect, just ran this entire issue called the Green New Deal, which is a practical application. We did 22 stories on how you can actually accomplish a Green New Deal, that it's possible with today's technology, with today's financing. All we need is the political will.
Yeah.
And so what he was saying was, oh no, you need a transition, you need a bridge fuel. No, you don't. We have the ability right now to build out a zero carbon economy.
Yeah.
And he's just wrong about that.
So I want to tell you guys, if you want to read that, it's prospect.org/Green New Deal. We'll have the link down below if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook, so you can just click on it. And if only Biden was running for a position that had a lot of power, then maybe he could do something about it, but he's only running for president of the United States.
Yeah, that whole thing about using natural gas as a bridge fuel for 10 years or 20 or 50 years in some of these plans, that is actually a very good idea if you have a controlling stake in a natural gas company and you want to make money for the rest of your natural life. It's good for that.
Like Biden's major advisor.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, she's made over $1 million according to the reporting by being on the board of that company.
Yeah.
Then Biden does hire her to be the top climate advisor. And so when he said in the beginning, no, she's not, that's not the person advising me, he was wrong. It is the person that's advising him. And he seemed to verify that later. You saw the exchange for yourself. But he said, oh yeah, she worked for us in the administration. That's true.
That's also bad.
Right, that's not good either.
To a natural gas company, which is worse. She went through the revolving door. She was in a position of power and then went to industry.
Yeah, and if you're choosing an informal advisor specifically on climate change, like, I don't know, I'd go for like a scientist maybe. Do you know how many people I'd have to go through to get to anyone who had even been affiliated with a natural gas company?
Yeah, no, I mean, we just literally LOL'd at that. I mean, in a democracy, if you didn't have the corrupting influence of money, your top advisor on climate change would obviously be a scientist.
Yeah.
And in this political landscape, that's so funny that two progressives laughed out loud.
Yeah.
Like that a politician would have a scientist as an advisor.
Yeah, so here's the issue with the whole natural gas thing. First, one bit more of information about Biden from the Sunrise Movement, and then here's why him being wrong on that issue specifically is so bad. So overall, in case you missed it, earlier this week, Sunrise Movement released their scores on climate change for the top 3 candidates, giving Bernie an A-, Warren a B-, and Biden a never before seen F-, and recommending parent-teacher conference time.
You haven't seen my report card from middle school.
That's true.
Ben Mankiewicz has a story of how one of his uncles, who then wound up becoming a legendary director, got an F- once. And he went to ask the professor, like, Jesus Christ, what happened? He's like, well, I couldn't give you a G.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're gonna be scoring other candidates. We'll see if they pass out any Gs or anything like that. And you can get more information on the website. They break it down in incredible detail about how they came to these scores. And they said, by the way, all of the candidates can improve, and they're not endorsing anyone yet, so just bear that in mind. But here's the issue specifically on natural gas. New data shows that natural gas, which is less polluting than coal, but still a fossil fuel, has become the biggest driver of emissions growth globally in recent years. Now, global emissions from coal, the worst polluting of the fossil fuels, unexpectedly declined by about 0.9% in 2019, although that drop was more than offset by strong growth in the use of oil and natural gas around the world. And if you break it down, over the course of 2000 to 2018 for the different sorts of fossil fuels, you can see that coal did keep going up and then it sort of moderated itself over the past couple of years. But natural gas and oil have been steadily going up too, with no sign that they're going to turn around. And I guarantee they're not going to with Joe Biden as president.
Well, I mean, just to be clear, what that's showing is that activists have done a really good job of closing coal plants. I mean, it's not that coal got cleaner somehow. It's that we have retired a ton of coal plants around the world.
Yeah.
And that's what moderated that. It's action that has moderated that. But a lot of that has been moved into the natural gas area, and so you almost see a symbiotic relationship. As coal goes down, natural gas goes up.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's when we say we shut it down, it got shut down because it became unaffordable and couldn't keep up with market conditions.
Particularly around natural gas, which is much cheaper.
Yes, and natural gas, and now finally renewable energy as well. And so if you don't know, there's a lot more jobs in America that in the renewable energy industry than there is in the coal industry. So there's a lot of mythology about that, but the reality is there are more jobs and higher paying jobs in renewable energy.
Yeah, and I just found this interesting. I think it's important that you know. Can we jump ahead to the next chart? It's gonna show CO2 per person across the US, China, the European Union, India, and the rest of the world. And you will notice that, hey, turns out we are #1 in certain areas, not necessarily the ones we should be. And so there is still an incredible amount of work that needs to be done, which means that we need someone who is not only right in the rhetoric and not only right in the policies, but that prioritizes it and will pursue these solutions with the passion necessary to push them through a Congress and lobbyists and all of that are gonna be fighting to the death to stop it. You can't afford to have a person who's like, yeah, I technically sign on to the plan, and that's it. Is that the person that's going to push it through? I don't think so.
One of the stories we have in our series talks about every country in the world that has signed on to the Paris Climate Agreement. And out of all those countries, there are only 2 that actually have implemented policies that would limit temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is what the Paris Climate Agreement says. Morocco and the Gambia. So not exactly the heavy hitters on CO2. And so that's where we're at. And we do need leadership all around the world.
So Joe Biden, in essence, is telling you 2 things. One is that he just doesn't get it. He genuinely thinks, well, I put us back in the Paris Climate Accords. Doesn't that do it? No, Joe, it doesn't do it. We're way, way behind. And he's so out of touch that he genuinely doesn't understand the urgency of the situation. The second thing he's telling you is there's just no way we could catch Morocco. And so if you want a president who says we can't possibly beat Morocco, Biden's your guy.
Why don't we take our second break?
All right, sounds good. We'll be right back.